On March 14th, Newton voters will decide the fate of ballot question number 2, asking for $2,300,000 to support a debt exclusion override on funding to either renovate or build a new Countryside Elementary School during the special election. If approved, this debt exclusion override would start in fiscal year 2030 and last for 30 years. In 1953, Countryside Elementary School opened as a neighborhood school with 12 classrooms in response to the baby boom. But those 12 classrooms were not enough.
In 1958, so 5 years later, they built an addition to the school consisting of 4 annex classrooms in the back because they had underestimated the number of students that would be coming to the Countryside School District. That was not enough. In 1986, 1991, 1999, and 2000, additional classrooms were added in the form of annexes and temporary modular classrooms.
And the classroom sizes are anything but ideal.
So this is a good example of classrooms over here at Countryside. This classroom has 24 students. Certainly it's undersized, but I think one of the things I'd like to point out, a few things. One, I know you can't see this, but it's about 81 degrees in here. You go to other parts of the school and it's not uncommon to find it in the lower 60s. It changes depending on where you're at in the building or the given day. On top of that, this space doesn't have your small breakout areas. It doesn't have the acoustics that you would want. Extremely challenging. It has a unit ventilator, which is quite noisy and temperamental. And I think one of the things that you really recognize when you go to the newer schools is the amount of natural light, how much that space really matters to the educational experience.
Even with the expansion of the number of classrooms over the years, there aren't any necessary additions available to accommodate special areas needed to enhance students' learning.
They added no student support spaces, no special education spaces, no additional restrooms. No additional space for art, music, the gym, cafeteria. The building did not increase in its size to support the doubling of the number of students and the doubling of the number of staff.
Well, I feel like I'm in a unique position because I was a teacher here. So I've been able to see the lens from being an educator in the building to now being a building leader. And it is very challenging to provide those breakout spaces for children to work with our interventionist. Additionally, we have a mental health team, and sometimes we want to have private conversations with students, and we really have to be creative in making sure we're using every inch of the building to provide those spaces. We're so grateful to have increased technology, but our classrooms don't have enough outlets. So we've had to kind of be prioritizing, how can we provide the top-notch education that Josh described with the limitations that the building provides. The building is getting in the way of some of the things we would like to do more seamlessly.
And the lack of storage spaces outside of classrooms or designated rooms has led to overcrowding in the classroom and to storing items in the hallways.
Any storage space that they happen to have up here at any given time, they would have taken by now to use for some staff or educational purpose.
I'm sure. One major factor for Countryside is that it was built on wetlands. It sits below the water table level and chronically floods in the basement, hallways, and has lost heat in the building. It is never dry, and mold remediation is a common and constant effort.
We have sump pumps down here on the ground. We are, at this point, well below the water table. The water table at the Countryside School is right about here, just to give you a sense as to where we're at. That's not the ground level, that's the water table. When the building floods, the worst I've seen is right about here. We actually had to anchor the oil tanks into the foundation because when the sump pumps fail and the water comes up, the tanks would rip out of the ground and start floating around. The boilers, we've lost multiple boilers because they've been completely submerged. We started building them up on higher platforms because of the chronic flooding to try to avoid losing additional boilers. As I mentioned, these sump pumps, they run 24/7. If they ever fail, within a few minutes, you're swimming.
And sewage problems seem to be another big issue. Only one toilet was added during the additions, so the constant use on a limited amount of toilets has put a strain on the current sewage system. And when backups occur, an aroma permeates throughout the school.
These are the crawl spaces that contain our sewage ejector system. At the very end, there's a sewer ejector grinder and pump that sits directly below the nurse's office. That chronically fails when the system gets overtaxed, and it results in sewage running straight down at you as you're looking into this image. I have crawled all the way to the end in that sewage to make the repairs so that we can sustain countryside operations. That is a chronic issue that it's not a matter of maintenance. The building is too low on the site. There's nothing we can do to address that short of replacing the building.
The Massachusetts School Building Authority has chosen Countryside Elementary School to be one of 15 schools to receive a possible grant to help pay for a new school or renovation.
That grant is going to help the City of Newton in the form of roughly $20 million towards the total project budget of $61 million. We are exploring addition renovation as well as new construction options. The early looks like it's going to most likely be a new building, but we're still working with the community. And with that, we think it will be on the higher portion of the site where it will be less prone to flooding.
On Tuesday, March 14th, Newton's registered voters can decide whether to approve Question 2 for a debt exclusion override of an additional $2.3 million per year for 30 years to fund a new or renovated Countryside Elementary School.
If the override were to fail, we risk losing that $20 million in state funds. What we would end up having to do, most likely, is we would no longer be in the state program. We would have to either wait until the City of Newton had the full $61 million, or if it were in the future, whatever the escalated number is, or we would have to reapply when we thought we could secure the funds with MSBA. But the answer for Countryside and for all of our projects in the override, if the override does not pass, if the ballot questions do not pass, they will have to be stretched out many, many years.
More information is available on the city's website. Jen Adams, Newton News, West Newton.